Once upon a time, there were 3 little pigs, and they lived with their mummy pig in a farm. And the 3 little pigs were called, and now the oldest one was, and the youngest one was, and they were getting a little bit big. And they kept treading on their mummy pig with their trotters, and they kept eating all the food, and they kept squashing up, and poor mummy pig, whose name was Squeak, couldn't get in anywhere. She could hardly move, and she said, "Right, and it's time you went out and built your own houses and found your own homes." So the 3 little pigs went out into the farmyard. Now, there was plenty of space. It was an old-fashioned farm. It wasn't too built on. And was a little bit lazy. And he said, "Why bother to build anything when the farmer has got great big stacks of straw bales?" And there was little spaces in between the stacks that he could just wriggle his fat bottom into. So moved in to the straw house. He thought, this is going to be nice and warm in winter. It'll keep the weather off, and I shall be snug as a bug in a rug. I don't need to build anything. I am a clever pig, thought. He was all right. It was snug. It was nice and cosy. And his second pig, his second sister, thought, she thought, I like that. But there are no more straw bales, and I don't want to live with my smelly brother, and so I'm going to build my own place. Now, she had seen the farmer cutting down some trees, and she thought, I'm going to use tree branches and put them together like this and build a sort of wigwam, and I can put turf over the top to keep the rain out. And it's a little bit more stylish than my brother and his straw bale house, and it has more elegance, and I will have built it myself. I'm not just using something that's there. And so was extremely pleased with herself. And she got the sticks and she put them together, and she put one against the other and another one and another one, and she built a fine little wigwam house, and she put turf and leaves and moss over it, and it sort of kept the rain out. And she was pretty snug and very pleased with herself. But the third little pig, well, she looked at her brother and sister's work and thought, what happens when the farmer wants his straw bales? And what happens in a really bad storm? I want a proper house. Now, the farmer had been doing some building, and there was some stone and bricks he hadn't used left in a pile to be thrown away. And so she got the wheelbarrow. She was a very clever little pig, was. And she got the wheelbarrow and she put the stone and the bricks in, and she pulled the wheelbarrow across the farmyard to a nice little out-of-the-way spot. And she put the bricks down and she built the bricks. She did a nice foundation layer, and then she put the stones on it, and then she put a nice wooden roof on top, and she put some more stones on top to keep the wooden roof in place, and was extremely pleased with herself. And it was indeed a very nice, strong house. And well, right, because the farmer did want his straw bales, especially as winter came on. And the great stack of straw bales went down and down and down, until in the end Paul was living in just a little pile of heaped straw left at the side of the farm. Never mind, he thought, I'll snuggle down in here and I'll be quite warm when winter comes. As winter came and the wind came, the house did leak a little, but she thought, it's a stylish house, it's a pretty house, it's my house, I don't care if it leaks a bit. But was extremely happy in her snug wood and stone and brick house. One day the big bad wolf was coming along, and he looked through the farm, and there were some chickens and there were some geese, and then he saw the 3 little piggy houses. He saw house, which was made of straw, and house made out of sticks and turf, and house made out of wood and bricks, and he thought, yes, I think I can demolish all of those. I quite fancy bacon sandwiches for tea. And he went to the straw house and he called out, little pig, let me in. And said, not by the hairs on my chinny chin chin, I won't. And so the big bad wolf, he took a deep breath and he huffed and he puffed and he blew the house down. Paw was terrified and he ran off, fast as his little trotters could trot, to his big sister's house. But the twig house was only just room for 2 pigs. So they snuggled in together and said to her, what's the matter? And said to her, well, it's the big bad wolf. He's coming and he blew my house down. Oh dear, said, what are we going to do? And just as she said that, the big bad wolf came along and said, little pigs, let me in. And both little pigs both said, not by the hairs on our chinny chin chin. And the wolf took a deep breath and he huffed and he puffed and he blew that stick house down, and both the little pigs and went off to the house of. And the little pigs knocked on the door and said, let us in. Terrible things have happened. And so let them in and said, and what's the matter? He looked terrified and said, oh, it's terrible because the big bad wolf is after us. And went, oh dear, this is really bad. Now help me light a fire. Light a fire? Said, and on a day like this, it's warm. I promise you, help me light a fire, said. Well, the other 2 pigs knew they had to do what their little sister said because they were in her house. So they got all the sticks and straw and everything they could find in the house, and they built a big fire in the fireplace. Meanwhile, looked out of the window, and sure enough, coming through the farmyard was the big bad wolf with big eyes and big paws and big teeth. And said, okay, is the fire going? Yes, squeaked. And so waited, and the big bad wolf came along and went, little pigs, let me in. And all 3 pigs squealed, not by the hairs on our chinny chin chin. And the wolf said, I'll huff and I'll puff and I'll blow your house down. And said, no you won't. And the big bad wolf tried. He went once, went twice. And could he blow the house down? No, he could not. Never mind, said the big bad wolf, I know just what to do. And he climbed up on the roof and he went to the top of the chimney and he looked down the chimney and he saw the smoke and the flames coming up and he went, I can't get down there. And the big bad wolf ran off into the forest, and I think he probably made do with a bunny rabbit for supper. But the 3 little pigs all took construction courses and learned how to build houses properly. And they went into pig house building and became very wealthy. And as the wolf, he found it better to stick to the forest.